Hi, welcome to my podcast. My name is Jean McIntyre, and today we're going to talk about teaching art and specifically teaching for artistic behaviors, teaching TAB. And I want to talk about what TAB is, why I switched from discipline-based art education to TAB, and the transition itself and how I made that transition and flipped my classroom. So let's get into it. Making my transition. It was a year-long process to go from discipline-based art education to flipping my classroom. First, I read all of the books. These books that you see on your screen, The Learner-Directed Classroom, Engaging Learners Through Art Making, Choice Without Chaos as an ebook. Sticks was great, and The Studio Thinking from the Start were amazing books for me to read and to really understand and have the ability to advocate for this type of teaching pedagogy for the art classroom. I thought a lot about this. Like I said, it took me over a year to really make this whole transition. Like, how does this even work where students have choice and it's not me passing out the materials and knowing what colors they're going to use or all of these different things where I'm the keeper of all the materials and I just sort of pass them out as needed. Um, what will other people think? Are they going to think that the students are playing and they're not really making anything? The parents are going to be upset that their students aren't going to be bringing home beautiful pieces of artwork that are really adult aesthetic artworks. Okay. Um, in TAB, there's a mini lesson. There's like a 5-minute lesson, and most of the time is art making. And then you can go back to sharing. How am I going to cover all the standards this way with only a 5 to 10-minute lesson each time? And how do you keep the classroom organized? Because it could what's to say that the kids get out materials and then you have a destroyed classroom. And the last thing is, the more I read, the classroom is completely flipped. I'm not the one who accesses the materials out of the cupboard. It's the students. So how do you do that? How do you switch it all up? The thing was reading. And then this is one of the books that I read the most and had the most in-depth information. And then I talked to my principal about it. I actually gave my principal this book that I was reading with all my notes and highlights in it. And she was able to read it over the summer and said, you know what, I talked to some other art teacher friends of mine, and this is a great idea. Let's go for it. It was great to have her as her backing, because then she can also advocate to our superintendent. She can advocate to families if they have questions or if it comes up in conversation. And then it was go time. So over the summer or at the end of that summer, then I started figuring out how I could flip the classroom and make it into a student-centered teaching for artistic behavior classroom. And then we communicated this with families as well and let them know what the classroom is going to look like and that it is scientifically like research-based philosophy of art education. Thank you for joining me on this podcast about TAB, Teaching for Artistic Behaviors, how I made the transition from discipline-based art education to TAB, and see you next time.